Hello, thank you for watching my video on ways to cleanse your body and mind. This is part 1 of my 5-part series on cleansing your body. My name is Rachel, and thank you for watching. So the first portion of my discussion today is going to be on why do we need to be mindful of toxicity in the first place. And then we will be talking about why it is important to cleanse through nutrition first and foremost before you do any other types of cleansing. And then we'll talk about how good nutrition helps our bodies rid itself of toxicity. And finally, we'll talk about what sort of nutrition is really good nutrition to help optimize our body's natural detoxification system. So the problem with toxicity today and why we should be so aware of it now is because we have so much of it. It's everywhere. It's in every aspect of our lives. I mean, it's unavoidable. And the impact of low levels of toxicity on our body over a long period of time is something that is not recognized enough. I feel most toxicity goes unnoticed because it's such a low level over a long period of time that it doesn't alert a standard test, like blood test, showing certain levels of things are high, because there's just not enough of it there at that point in time because it's such a low grade amount. But over a period of time, when we have an influx of a ton of different chemicals and toxicity, it starts going and storing itself in other parts of the body besides the blood. Because one thing you have to understand is when we're exposed to toxicity, it gets into our system and into the bloodstream, and at that point it is really kept at a low level, because if it gets too high in the bloodstream, then we will immediately die. And when it's too high in the bloodstream, that's when tests will show us that we're toxic, but not when it's too high in any other tissues in our body. And that's why it goes unnoticed so much. People say, "Oh, well, I got a test for such and such metal. It wasn't high." But yeah, I'm sitting there and I'm looking at them, and they have all the symptoms of aluminum toxicity, and yet they're not testing for it. And it's because we can't test necessarily every tissue and organ in our body to see what the level of it is. That would be very difficult to do. But the point of the matter is we've got so much all around us that at some point our body's going to snap. And when it does, we are going to get very sick. And we want to catch the toxicity before we get to that point. So I provided here in this slide just some, things to think about, to be aware of, that would contain substances that would be poisonous or toxic to the body, especially over long periods of time or in high amounts in a short duration of time. So some examples would be, your standard pesticides and herbicides, that are on your food. A lot of us will also drink out of plastic containers, and so then we're absorbing toxins through our water. Our drinking water is loaded with toxins because we drink out of plastic containers. And so every time we drink water, it's stressing out our kidneys. So we need to be mindful of where we're getting our water from and what it has in it, and what sort of containers we're drinking out of. Also, I like to pay special tribute to perfumes and colognes because they can be so bad for you. Many of them are major hormone disruptors, and how many people today have an imbalance of hormones? It's just very common because there's a sea of estrogen or xenoestrogens. So those are chemicals that mimic the female hormone estrogen. And so then that causes all kinds of female issues for our ladies out there. Another thing would be unpurified water. So we talked about the plastic containers, but unpurified water would be, drinking chlorinated water or fluorinated water on a regular basis. It's just a constant influx of toxins. Another thing is, like, if you live in the countryside or near a farm or a field, there's all the chemicals from them spraying the fields that soak into the soil near your house, and then a lot of times you'll get that in your well water in sources such as nitrogen and arsenic and God knows what else, you know. So then we've also got cosmetics and hair care products that we slather on every day, and those are usually loaded up with severe chemicals and toxins, and we're putting those on all the time. And then, you know, heaven forbid, we turn on the air freshener, and if it's not, you know, essential oil or something natural, you know, it's probably got some hormone disruptive qualities to it as well, because usually the scents, the artificial scents would do that. And then candles, if they're paraffin candles, the smoke or burning byproducts of that are very toxic, very toxic. You should never use paraffin candles. Try to stick to beeswax or a soy candle. It'll be a lot better off for your home environment. Another thing we always use is antiperspirants and deodorants that are loaded up with aluminum. Aluminum is a neurotoxin and should be avoided at all costs. Food additives and chemicals are put in your food and prevent you from being able to digest it because they inhibit the enzymatic activities. And then we have prescription drugs everyone's taking now, and it's stressing out everyone's liver, so then the liver can't filter out all these other minuscule toxins that we have been exposed to throughout our day. And then we also have the pathogenic microbes like our parasites and non-opportunistic bacteria that cause disease. And then we have, you know, electromagnetic radiation, you know, from using cell phones and the wireless signals all throughout our communities now. They affect the nervous system especially and cause disruption there. And then there's heavy metal poisoning going on as well from amalgam fillings, and certain vaccines contain like mercury. So that's something also to be mindful of as well. So why is it particularly important to cleanse with nutrition first? I'm going to introduce to you now the toxic stress cycle, and it kind of gives us an idea of how this all works and why digestion is so important and vital to keep our bodies healthy and happy. So the toxic stress cycle, let me show you a visual picture of it here. So it starts off with the digestive system, which starts in the mouth, and obviously everything we eat could be good or bad depending on what we're eating. And so step one, toxins enter in through the alimentary canal, go in through our digestive system, and the toxins are absorbed. Step two, toxins are absorbed into the bloodstream via leaky gut. So some of you might be wondering, well, what the heck is a leaky gut? And what does that mean? I'm going to flick to this page, and you're going to think, oh my gosh, that's kind of weird. So what this is a picture of inside your small intestine or your intestinal tract. And we've got these tons and tons and tons of these thread-like things that protrude in your small intestine. And what those are is the microvilli that help you absorb your food better. And then also within our digestive system, I like to show you this picture. We've got bacteria. This is probably the most prominent area where we have bacteria hanging out. And you think, oh my gosh, bacteria, that's so bad. But no. A majority of our bacteria are actually very beneficial and are needed for biological processes. So this picture is just showing us that we have a lot of bacteria in our gut, and there could be good and bad. But I think the important thing to remember is that the types of bacteria we have in our gut actually affect our immune system and also affects our body's ability to combat toxins. So certain bacteria are actually able to help our body rid itself of toxins better than other types. And if we have the wrong suited type of bacteria to our immune system, because everyone needs to have individualized strands of bacteria for their immune system. If we have the wrong ones, then those bacteria will work against our immune system versus for it. And as you can see, the bacteria actually form sort of a protective barrier between our bloodstream and the exterior world. And so it's very important that the bacteria there are well developed and the correct ones for our specific blood type. Now we're going to backtrack a little bit to step 3. So if the good bacteria in our digestive system aren't optimized and there's the barrier there is broken, then the toxins leak in to the bloodstream and then travel to the liver, which I will show you a picture here of the hepatic vein to the liver. And this is, these blue veins here it's showing go from the intestines directly to the liver to be filtered. So is what happens after the toxins leak into the bloodstream or that vein there is they go directly to the liver right up here. And the liver is there to actually help filter out those toxins before they start spreading to the rest of the body. Backtrack a little bit again. If the toxins are soluble in fat, then it is especially important for the liver to break them down in order so that the kidneys can remove them later on in the detoxification cycle. Because the kidneys are designed to remove the water-soluble toxins instead of the fat-solubles. Heaven forbid if the kidneys and the liver are both stressed out too much to where they can't keep up with all the toxic load, then the toxins enter the lymph and start getting stored in cells like the bones and the fat cells. And when the toxins get stored in the fat cells, it makes it a lot harder for people to lose weight because the fat actually protects our body from the detrimental effects of these toxins. So fat acts as a buffer. Sometimes people put on a lot of weight after they get a lot of toxicity because the fat is protecting them from the toxins from destroying their vital organs. So at some point, the toxins are in the bloodstream, they end up affecting the heart, they may affect the spine depending on what sort of chemicals or poisons that they are. Toxins eventually may bypass the protection of the thyroid and travel to the hypothalamus and at some point damage the hypothalamic axis and start destroying brain tissues. If these toxins are neurotoxic, then they may result in contributing to old age and Alzheimer's. So an important thing for you to understand is that there are two types of toxins. There's exotoxins, and endotoxins. Exotoxins are toxins that come in through our environment. Endotoxins are natural metabolic toxins that are made as a byproduct of metabolism. So carbon dioxide would be an example of this. And then, pesticides, herbicides, those sort of things that we had talked about earlier would be an example of exotoxin. Okay. So the body is very well designed to deal with it and the endotoxins, but in the additional amounts of exotoxins that we experience in our everyday lives, it is not capable of maintaining balance as well with those additional toxins. So this is a picture showing 3 phases of detoxification, specifically of the liver. But I think it's a nice visual for you to all see, and it kind of gives a good example of why nutrients are important to detoxification. So in phase 1 of liver detoxification, which is our main detoxification organ, certain things like P450 enzymes are required, B vitamins are required, minerals are required, BCAAs are required, bioflavonoids are required, glutathione is required. All these substances we get in our food. If we're not eating nutrient-rich food loaded with vitamins and minerals, and we're eating foods that actually deplete our vitamins and minerals, then that's going to inhibit our natural process of detoxification, because it's going to limit the ability for the liver to do what it needs to do, because it doesn't have the correct and the right amounts of the necessary materials. And so let's just say that our toxin made it through phase 1, and so now it's an intermediary metabolite, and it either is an intermediate metabolite or it's reactive molecule still. If it's reactive, then we need necessary antioxidants to actually break it down and cause it to be benign. So making those toxins into benign substance. The antioxidants are capable of doing that. So some examples would be selenium, copper, zinc, glutathione, bioflavonoids, coenzyme Q10, and vitamins A, C, and E are really great antioxidants, but they're all found in your food. If it is nutrient-dense food. However, if you're eating processed food that is stripped of the nutrients and it's loaded with additives and chemicals that prevent you from absorbing the nutrients, then, well, obviously those aren't going to do you any good. So my main point here is we really need to focus on getting our nutrition optimized before we even consider any kind of cleansing. We need to optimize the nutrition, and we need to keep the nutrition levels up during cleansing, because if we don't, then it's going to minimize the effects of our detoxification organs. Does that make sense? So after we've converted the toxin to a different form of a toxin, intermediary metabolite, it goes to phase 2, where we need glutathione once again, and many other amino acids which are derived from proteins, and like things from like meat and nuts and seeds and beans. If we don't have those proteins, then our liver's phase 2 process is going to be diminished, or it's going to start stealing protein from our muscular protein cells. So once it's hit phase 2, then it can go to phase 3, where the kidneys end up filtering it out through the urine, or it ends up going out through the bile and then through the feces. So detoxing through nutrition. Step 1, you need to remove toxins from your diet and environment as much as possible. Okay? So you've got to get rid of those pesticides, you got to get rid of those herbicides, you got to get using more natural products. Make sure your water that you're drinking is not chlorinated and fluorinated and loaded with nitrogen or any other kind of chemicals. You've got to, secondly, then increase the intake of detoxifying nutrients. So you've got to optimize the mineral levels and the vitamin levels in your body by eating the correct nutrients. And some of you may say, oh, well, why can't I just take a nutrient supplement? Why do I have to eat the right food? Because if you're not eating the right foods for your body, then those are going to become a toxin as well. And so then it just compounds the fact. So you might as well eat the correct foods. That way you can get the nutrition and the minerals and vitamins you need in order to detoxify. And in addition to that, you're removing the toxins from your diet and environment as well. So some nutrients that are really needed for detoxification are vitamins A, C, and E, B3, B complex, and minerals such as iodine, selenium, zinc, silica, sulfur, with a pinch of salt is good as well. Antioxidants such as the A, C, and E, coenzyme Q10, glutathione, bioflavonoids, chromium, also enzymes such as protease enzymes, lipase enzymes, amylase enzymes, and there's many, many other enzymes, but I was just listing a few. Also, I like to provide a nice list of supernutrients that are natural chelators and antioxidants for your body. So cilantro, chlorella, which is a seafood, sulfur, glutathione, A, C, and E, broccoli sprouts, any kind of sprouts really, garlic, MSM, alpha-lipoic acid, CLA, liver cleansing, so eating the right foods for your liver, like dark bitter greens or sour lemons are really good for your liver as well.